for my intros. Does it sound snotty? I can blow my nose real quick if I need to. I gotta blow my nose.
Hey everybody, this is Joni.
And I'm Cindy.
And this is
Twin Talk. We're identical twins, but even though we look alike, we are very different.
I live in Washington.
And I live in Alabama. But we both have very different careers. I run newspapers.
And I'm in the nuclear industry. Even with those different careers, we both have been very successful.
And we've both had some setbacks. So even though we live on separate sides of the country, we are going to use technology to bring us together to talk about a lot of the things that we really like.
Things that we find important, like professional development,
And leadership,
mental health,
parenting.
and some of our hobbies.
So please join us for Twin Talk. Hi, I'm Cindy Fisher, and I'm an identical twin. I get often asked, why do you want a newspaper? Why do you live in Selma, Alabama? How'd you get there? In this episode of Twin Talk, I will share my story with the help of my dad and some of my trusted mentors. And we're going to discuss my passion for hyperlocal news, our perspectives on the changing landscape of media in this country, and how this female leader in the industry is bringing heart and innovation to the Alabama Black Belt. Join me for this episode of Twin Talk. Where to start? People ask me all the time, like, how did you get into newspapers and reporting? I tell them it's a family business. My dad was a reporter when I was little and kept doing it even though he went into PR and communication. He kept doing it with the Alabama Press Association. So I kind of grew up around journalists and in newsrooms.
I am Brad Fisher, Associate Publisher of the Selma Sun and Vice President of Public Relations for Kingfisher Media. Well, first of all, I always thought you would go into journalism. I mean, you had pretty much made your pronouncement. You had come out as being a journalist a long time. Fourth grade or so. And so I was not surprised. And the industry wasn't quite as topsy-turvy as it is now. It was far more, it was, you always knew it wasn't a place where you were going to go and be rich, but it at least it had a higher level of stability than media has now.
The first time I heard about you was your dad telling me, I was a reporter at the Tuscaloosa News.
And I was in high school, I think.
Yes, and your dad telling me, my daughter is going to be a journalist, and I told you before, I think I probably rolled my eyes, but yeah, everybody's daughter's going to be a journalist, okay. You know, I was with that, like, sort of hardened journalist, but then he told me more about you, and then I met you, and here you are.
As a teenager, he would take me out of school, and we would go to different newspapers, and that was always a lot of fun, because then I got to be in a newsroom and actually see that is where I flourished, and I never wanted to leave. But I also loved playing, making newspapers. That's what I did on my summer days. And at the time, all I had was a typewriter. The Fisher Gazette is what I called it. And we would do wrap-ups of our soap from the day or from that week. And we would do a Dear Pixie column, which was our cat. And we would pretend that other animals in the neighborhood wrote to her and that she would respond to them. I would type and then hit enter, and then type a couple words and hit enter in order to get it in columns. It wasn't easy, and it looks pretty rough. I would leave squares for little sister to draw the pictures to go with it, and she's always been really good at art. So I graduated eventually from the little hitting enter all the time on an actual typewriter to a computer. When Dad got the first, I think it was a 286, he got PageMaker on it. And that was the most exciting thing ever. So I went 3 years making my papers myself. I now actually can make them look exactly like it. Oh, that was so exciting. When I was in 10th grade or 11th grade, one of our projects was the Scarlet Letter. We had to do a book report. And they wanted you to be creative and you can do all kinds of different things. And I was like, I'm gonna make a newspaper. So I called it the Boston Gazette. And I made on PageMaker a whole paper that, talked about the Scarlet Letter. And I got, of course, an A+. And she asked for more copies of it so she could show it to next, past after me. This is an example of a creative way to do your book reports. When I went to college, it was obviously going to be for newspapers, to be a reporter. And I did the editing sequence. At the time they had, had options. I liked the business behind it, editing, so overseeing reporters and the coverage and making sure we covered everything, and then laying it out and designing it. I just liked all of that. I liked subscriptions. How do we grow? How do you build an audience? And now that I'm looking back at it, ever since I was little, this is just always the way I've thought. People think I'm going to be a doctor, and they've always thought that way. I've just always thought this way. So having a father who is a journalist at heart, whether he was doing it professionally or not at the time, actually helped a lot too. And part of it was because he got me thinking about current events and local topics. And I just remember feeling respected, because my opinion mattered, but also learning how to listen to other people's point of view and absorb that, but keep my own. So when I was a kid and telling my mom, and my dad, of course, that I want to be a journalist when I grow up, Mom didn't want me to. Mom didn't want me to be a journalist. And part of it was because she knew that it was long hours. You don't get paid very much. It seems like a thankless job. I always say it's a civic duty more than anything. I'm lucky to make money and be able to pay the bills doing this, because I love it. Journalists, we love it so much. We put the community first, maybe ahead of our families. There may be a little bit to that. The responsibility that we feel, it's I don't know. I never put it down. We're on all the time. As a single mom, that's pretty hard. I don't really think about that. I just do it. I just always thought this would be so much fun to own my own newspaper. But my first track was big newspapers, the Birmingham Post-Herald, which was the afternoon paper in Birmingham. So huge paper, huge job, great experience at 23 years old, for goodness sakes. It was great, great experience. And just kept thinking, it's got to be corporate. Ran a business journal and loved that company. But the idea of, once that's over, what's next? In order to stay in newspapers, the only way I could see staying is to own one. And I did try a marketing job for a year and a half and made it most money I've ever made in my entire life. And I hated it. I really did. It's not that I wasn't good at it, maybe not as good. There was no real purpose to it to me. And I'm very purpose driven. I have to do each day. What gets me up in the morning is doing something I know leads to and has a purpose to it. I lost 2 jobs in 3 years, and it was tough. One of them was a business journal job. As editor, I was making really good money, and it was a really prestigious job. It was TV, radio, it was everything, and the paper. And that was a really great experience. In the end, it's helped me be very diverse with what I do now. But the marketing job was in the middle, and then that one ended, and then what? And then, after that one, I got a good severance, but that only lasts so long as a single mom. I ended up waiting tables for a little while, which I won't do again. I suck at that. I can't remember anything. If you stop me and ask me for sour cream, that is the only thing I'm going to remember for the whole last hour. That person's going to get their sour cream, but no one's going to get anything else. But as I was, trying to remember the sour cream, I was also formulating in my mind, what's next, what's next? And it was journalism. I was like, I can't leave. My industry needs me now more than ever. As the Trump administration was just bashing media and, just to discredit us, that they can do and say whatever they want, it just bothered me. So I knew that I needed to get back in. My plan was to buy newspapers. The one I own now is not the first one that I made offers on. I looked at others, and a chain of 3. I didn't have the funding for it. I was hoping for a fire sale, because there's a lot of papers out there that are just, they would save money or even make money by just giving it away. And my plan was, as I was looking for the right paper, I was making a business plan. How are we going to do this? How do we make it work? How can I do it by myself? As a single mom, there's just no room for error. I can't just jump in there and make nothing for 5 years, like they say with new companies. Luckily, within the first 6 months, we were making money, and the first year was rough due to just making good business decisions, and so that has been very helpful for us. We also, when you look at the way that newspapers are written and what kind of content is in there, we don't have any national content and no even statewide content. My 8-10 pages is dedicated only to Selma and Dallas County. So, it's actually not hard to fill a paper with content here. There's so much going on, great pictures, great stories to tell. And so we try to take, being the Selma Sun, a sunnier, positive spin on things. So, we did have a police officer killed, and when that happens, being a weekly as well, you've got to be a second day angle anyway. Our take on it was, do we have enough police officers? It was really looking at the youth. There was the one charged with the murder is a recent grad from the high school and a football star. So, where are we going wrong with our teenagers and gang violence, etc.? So we're always trying to take a different spin than just what I call transactional journalism. It's just, we went to a meeting that was on Monday, they approved this, this, and this. What does that mean? We are always answering that. And my dad got to join me. He retired from his marketing job where he was for 40 years, and he joined me to be a reporter here, which was always his dream when he retired. And he didn't know what he wanted to do in retirement, but he kind of wanted to go full circle and go back to being a journalist. And I don't know, it was kind of neat that I got to make that possible for him.
So you go home and you say, well, what did you do today? And you could unfurl the paper and say, this is what I did today, right here. This is what I did today. When I went in the morning, I had nothing. When I came home at dinner, I had 14 inches that started on 1A and went to the jump page. With art, we are able to take a larger picture for the stories that really set the agenda for this town.
If you're going to be a reporter, if you can make it past the 5th year, then you're good. Because really, within that time, you're going to discover the hours suck, the pay's not great. You'll know what the rewards are. You're going to be there at the worst day of someone's life many times over. So along the way, as the owner of a newspaper, you do find mentors. You have folks that you can call and ask, and one of those is Bo Bolton, and he owns the Monroe Journal, and they have a press and use that press to print newspapers for a lot of us small community papers that can't afford to have our own press.
My name is Bo Bolton. I'm the publisher and owner of the Monroe Journal in Monroeville, Alabama.
So how long have you owned newspapers?
Approximately 35 years. Our community newspapers are vital. They report on education, government, sports, health, and I noticed in your paper, you have a story on COVID, which is hitting us again. And that's so important to our community, is to keep our readers informed. And then you have a story with Selma's history. It's important that we remind our readers of the struggles that others have gone through to make a better life for them. I'm sorry, I say a long answer to a short question. I didn't think you were crazy. I thought you had the background. You just need some management experience, and you branched off and doing some new things in the newspaper business. It looks like you've been successful with that. We print 22 newspapers. We print newspapers. The further south we go is Gulf Breeze. We print newspapers in Mississippi, and then we go as far north as Selma. So it's about 22 newspapers, community newspapers in that region that we print. Yeah, and it certainly helps me.
Yeah, sure. Because you didn't used to.
No, when I bought the paper, we had one print customer, and the print customer was in arrears, and through the years I've built it up to 22 newspapers. And I want to say about our pressmen, that's one of the reasons we've been able to build up our print work, is because I have really good pressmen. I have good folks in pre-press that gets the paper ready for printing, and I've got a professional organization, and that's the main reason that I've been able to increase my newspapers.
And Bo has been wonderful. And over the years, I call him about all kinds of things like obits. How do you set up that? How do you, I don't know, I'm trying to think. Some of the stuff though, for instance, my videos and my newscasts and all of he doesn't do that at all. He even doesn't do a lot on social media. So he asks me, how'd you do that? How did that go? Did you make money on that? So while I poke his brain about things like the outdoors section that I've never done before, but is absolutely key here in Dallas County, then he's flipping around and saying, how'd you make that video? How'd you get that sponsorship? And so it is a two-way, but he is absolutely a great mentor. And is it harder now than it was 35 years ago?
Yes, it is. A lot of your chains are disinvesting in their newspapers because the profit margin is not there anymore. And that leaves room for individual owners to come in, I think, and acquire these newspapers, and sort of a mom and pop type operation, similar to what you're doing. You've done.
Media has changed a great deal. The main thing is I think all media has gone from, to use the broadcast term, from broadcasting, or even in print, broadly reached publications, to narrow casting.
My dad would never have encouraged me to just go with what he said it needed to be. It's making it. He taught me early to make educated decisions on hot topics that I try to instill in my kids now. It's hard. We're so polarized now.
When I was a lad, you could watch Walter Cronkite or Huntley Brinkley on NBC or Cronkite on CBS, and they would do the news. And I couldn't notice as a child if it was right-leaning or left-leaning, but everybody heard the same starting point, right? They were all reading from the same Bible. They could decide if they wanted to handle snakes, or they decided if they wanted to dunk or sprinkle, but they were at least starting from the same words. Now, we no longer have that. Now, you can literally say you are well informed and receive only the words that don't challenge you.
But what's also hard is the respect for journalists that we had back then is different now. This whole campaign to discredit journalists in order to be able to get away with things has really made it very difficult for what I do for a living. And even my kids are almost 15 and 12, and they have not always respected what I do for a living. And so they act embarrassed sometimes that their mom owns a newspaper. But then again, Allie had the librarian ask her if I could come speak at Career Day. I've always believed that as we're going through this rough time of media being on display as being the bad guy, that hyper-local journalism is where we're going to fix this, because really there's no better way to prove that we are able to do what we do for a living and be unbiased and just report what we're reporting than at the hyper-local level. Basically, if I write something in here and you don't believe me, you can go down the street. City Hall's right over here. Walk in and ask them. Look it up. If you don't believe me, the mayor lives down the road. Go talk to him. It's at the hyper-local level we can prove that what we're doing is right.
Now we can't even agree about the basic facts, the basic information.
Their newspapers here again, I can't stress how important it is that we cover the community and have the local news in the newspaper. And it's credible. What we put in the newspaper, you can take to the bank. And you can't do that with a lot of other mediums. And if the community doesn't have a newspaper, who's going to serve as a watchdog over your city government, your county commission, your school board? It's so important that we continue our quest to cover the local news and make our communities a better place to live.
Because you're not out there to get people, but you are a watchdog still, so it's a balancing act for sure.
Another thing about being a reporter when you are a female and small, it's a thing that Joni and I talk about a lot, about our size and looking super young for so many years. I just learned to use that to my advantage. A lot of times people would tell me things because I'm disarming and unassuming, and I may not be writing something down, I'm just asking, and my curiosity can be contagious sometimes to where people just want to tell me things. So I will definitely say that being a cops reporter and being good at that was because the cops liked telling me things. That being you use what you have as your advantages, and I definitely used that for my advantage. I also got called Little Darling a lot, sweetheart, hug me around my neck and I'll tell you whatever you want. I've had that said to me. And that can be very disheartening. And this constant proving yourself thing. It's like, do I have to do this again? I'm 43. At some point at 40, do I still have to prove myself? I've been on this ladder for 20 years. I questioned myself a lot when I was younger, whether I was doing the right thing. All the time, I'm big about the right thing. What is the right thing? But I just always follow my gut. And my gut has generally been right. But, there's some risk-taking involved with being a journalist, and I am absolutely a risk-taker every day. I scare my mom, I know it. And I guess the other thing would be being a woman publisher. I went to the Press Association's convention recently, and I am not the only woman publisher. There are many women in this that do great. I have one friend that's small and blonde, and she gets the same thing that I get. People think that if we're too chummy with another man, that we're having an affair. If she wears shorts that are a little too short, which it's her choice, but she gets called names and such. You're a public figure, but also you want to be yourself, and we're all a little quirky in this business. But she's amazing business owner, makes great business decisions that should not be questioned whether she's wearing short shorts or not. And I kind of feel like, I've been there in that position. I don't know that we're necessarily innovating anything by being women publishers. More than anything, we're innovating by getting outside of the old school box of what it is we've been doing for 150 years. And I guess if you're going to already get looked down on or judged differently, you might as well do it your way. I see so many wonderful women graduating from college in journalism because it's so much hard work and you don't get paid that much. I don't see the men going into it as much.
I'm realizing as you're talking, Isabel just never wanted to do journalism, never, because both of her parents are journalists. Her dad runs a bunch of TV stations out on the West Coast, and she said, I'm never going to do that. She never wanted to. She wanted to go into politics or criminal justice, and journalism was never it. But the day of the Capitol insurrection, that's the day she decided to try it. And I didn't know this until recently. I thought maybe one of her friends got her to try it. I wasn't sure how she figured out about the Crimson White and started it, but she said that day she thought it was awful how journalists and journalism and those are the people bringing the news to people, and how important it was. So she's doing it now.
I just think that there's a different side to that, to the coin of being in a business that has been male dominated, and it's not so much anymore. And then just coming at it as a female, just use our strengths, which is being a little bit more on the caring and empathetic side that can make for a really good journalist. Because in order to prove to the world now that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing as unbiased and professionals that see both sides and present it in a clear and concise and not biased way, what better way to do that than to have a woman do it that knows how to see both sides and make good compromises and decisions. We're less likely to be pig-headed. That's what I like to say. When I was unemployed for the first time ever, I started to rethink what I wanted to do for a living. With all my business connections, I figured, public relations would be a good idea. So I started to brainstorm business names that I could register with the state. At first I came up with my initials and, consulting and actually was taken. So I just kind of looked at it like it was too generic. So I went into my creative place in my head, and I kind of float, but yet I'm focused, and I could see some ideas pop up. And one idea stream was about what symbolized the Fishers, the Fisher family. I'm thinking, we're small, but we're tenacious. And then I could picture the living room, like kind of where we spend a lot of our time as the Fishers. And I could see the Kingfisher prints. There's these Basil Ease, an artist that likes to draw birds, and kingfishers is one of the ones that he does often. And my parents have several prints in in the house, mostly because kingfishers mean something to them, and it means something to me too. So the reason I picked Kingfisher Media was because they're small and they're feisty and they're fierce and they're birds that fly along the waterways, and they're very focused and they're looking and looking, and then they grab what it is that they want, a fish to feed themselves and their family. And that kind of that tenacity and small and fierce just kind of described, and the focus described what it was that I think my business is going to do. So, and for myself and what I want to do for a living, and also for my clients and what they want, focused, driven, and perform under even tough circumstances. So that I thought described Kingfisher Media well. Now that I had the company, Kingfisher Media, it was time to think, what do I want to do with the company? What can I see it doing? As a reporter and a journalist and newspapers, I knew that wasn't all we were going to be able to do, or all we even wanted to do. There's so many new things. I feel like as a business owner, I can pivot very easily because I can see kind of what the future is holding and where the readers are going. And not necessarily in print, and not even on social media necessarily. So as I was thinking, okay, well, let's help companies grow, not just us grow. So I also thought Black Belt, which is, small business growth, because we need that. And they're the ones that need the help the most. So I really thought of it like, let's do PR services, marketing services. We can make videos, we can make commercials, we do testimonials from customers for companies, help with their websites, and that's not unusual, but really it's more where we're doing it that is unusual. The fact that we are focused on helping businesses in the Black Belt grow. There are great business ideas here, absolutely amazing. I love working with the business owners in the Black Belt, absolutely providing a service that no one else outside of here even does, that we need to do for each other. And what we hope to do is to give those resources at an affordable price to those that want and to grow and that are doing a good job with their business here in the Black Belt. So it's communicating with the Black Belt. The business is communicating with their own community. We do hope to provide some services, perhaps even a grant program that larger businesses can sponsor other smaller businesses services so that they can make commercials and grow in a collaborative situation financially with bigger companies, because if the smaller companies don't grow, then the bigger ones don't either. One of our other goals with the Black Belt, we have spent about 3 years here in the Black Belt, which isn't very long, but as outsiders, we are seeing the just uniqueness of the Black Belt. There are some amazing people here, amazing stories. We are really hoping to grab a hold of a lot of these stories and create a YouTube channel and hopefully a streaming service channel that we're going to call the Black Belt Channel. And through that, we are hoping that we can share these stories with the rest of the country and I guess the world if they would like to see it and hear it, because we plan on really highlighting what all wonderful things that we have here in the Black Belt that gets overlooked because we're just too small for anyone else to cover this area and the issues that we have here. We also are hoping for podcasts, and in the podcasts, we're going to look at a lot of the same issues that we will do in videos, but talk about education. We're going to talk about socioeconomics. We'll talk about crime. Some of the things we don't do in print necessarily, but that we will definitely grab a hold of and get voices from throughout the community to talk to us and help us understand, and maybe our viewers to understand at the same time, why we are where we are. We know that we can't make the solution, but it's possible that we can have and we can reach others that can help us reach that solution. And just by being transparent and vulnerable and open about what we have going on here in the Black Belt that seems to be generational. And so we want to be able to tackle that by introducing our hyper-local issues to a broader audience. And that is Kingfisher Media. Tune in to our next Twin Talk episode where Joni talks to Ashley Gann, who is a woman in STEM just like Joni, and she is a meteorologist at Channel 42 in Birmingham. It's going to be a great one.